everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Dana, aka Blondie Knots here on YouTube, and today I have a very exciting video planned for us. We are going to be talking about all things crochet tapestry related. Crochet tapestry is something I have such a passion for, and it's something I have made quite a few of in my crochet career. A lot of them being pieces on the wall here behind me, and you may or may not be here from my video the other week where we made all of these in 7 days. Since filming that, I received lots and lots of questions about learning crochet tapestry, how to get started, all of those things, which really kind of caught me by surprise because I feel like tapestry is something a lot of people don't do, but I was so excited it was something a lot of you guys wanted to learn. I have combed through every single comment you guys left me and compiled a list of all the questions you had, plus I added some tips and tricks I have learned along the way just to help make crochet tapestry a little bit easier. Tapestry is such a fun and different style of crochet, and what I love about tapestry is you can turn it into much more than just a wall hang. A lot of my crochet tapestry pieces I have worked up, I have turned into purses, little handbags, small book sleeves, laptop cases. Really, your options are kind of endless where you want to take your crochet tapestry, but it is not confined to just wall hangs. I think it's a really beautiful way to display some artwork and give your room maybe a little something different, but still being very crafty. And so this is just something I am so excited to share with you guys so you guys can get into making some beautiful tapestry pieces yourself. I'm going to start at the very beginning and we will work our way all the way through a crochet tapestry pattern. I'll talk about every step along the way. I'll share some tricks with you. All the things I would think you would need to learn as a beginner tapestry artist to be successful in this art. So the first thing I'm going to start off with before I even hop into looking for patterns and all that stuff is materials. So a lot of people ask me what hook size I like to use and which yarn I like to use. So typically when you're doing a crochet tapestry pattern, if you purchase the pattern or you're working from someone else's pattern, whether it be free, whatever, a lot of the times they do list the hook size that you'll need to be using just as a regular pattern would. Of course, again, you can change it depending on what yarn you use or if you want the piece to be larger or smaller. Definitely check the final dimensions so you have somewhat of an idea. If you remember from that last video, I didn't check dimensions for any of the patterns, so I was surprised by all the sizes in the end, but to me the size really was here nor there because I had a lot of space to fill up on the wall, so I didn't really care how large the piece was. But if you are someone who needs to know the size of the end piece, it's usually always listed, and so if you go by the size hook and yarn size they list, typically your piece will be just about the same exact size. For me personally, regardless of what the pattern says, I typically will use a 4mm crochet hook. That's kind of my go-to. It's what I feel most comfortable using. Anything smaller for me gets irritating almost. So a lot of people, I think, like to use a 3.5, maybe sometimes even a 3.75, but like I said, I like to use a 4. I'm comfortable with that, and I don't mind my pieces being larger, so it actually kind of works out for me. And then a lot of times people will list their patterns with a cotton yarn, and that is also something I don't typically go with. I happen to usually go on the side of acrylic. One, it is a cheaper yarn to use, so I can make the project a little more cost effective for myself. And secondly, I just like the way the acrylic works up because the stitch definition is so much different when you're using a cotton yarn that I happen to like the way the acrylic is a little bit thicker or something. I think it's a little bit easier to hide your floats and all that kind of stuff. So I typically do err on the side of acrylic. My go-to for acrylics, and maybe you guys might know this by now, but if not, is Big Twist Value. They just have a fantastic color selection. I can get all kinds of bright, beautiful colors in Big Twist Value. And the yarn weight, this number 4 weight, just happens to be a perfect weight for myself. Whenever I mix this with a Red Heart Super Saver, which sometimes I have to do depending on the color I want, whatever, or what's available at my Joann, the Super Saver 4 weight is so much thicker and stiffer than this yarn right here. This yarn's very flexible. It's always soft. You know how sometimes like Red Heart can be soft, other colors are not soft. It's weird, but with Big Twist, it's always soft. It's a lighter number 4 weight, so it's just easy to carry more colors, I feel like, and it's just a go-to for my color selection in general. And it's super cheap, so like I said, I usually do go for a acrylic, but if the pattern recommends a cotton and you want to use cotton, by all means go ahead. I just typically, like I said, don't happen to use cotton for my projects personally. The only other things you really need when you're doing crochet tapestry is the normal suspects like your darning needle, your scissors, and your dowel. If you're going to be making it a wall hang, you'll need the dowel. We will go over how to attach the dowel at the end. That'll be one of our last steps that I will go over with you, but yeah, that's about really all you need. And then of course the pattern or whatever you're going to use. So next we are going to hop on the computer really quick and I'm going to show you where you can find crochet tapestry patterns, how to even make your own, and one other form I use for making a crochet tapestry pattern that isn't technically a crochet tapestry pattern. So let's just dive right into that. We'll get on the computer. I'll show you how I find a lot of things on there. I will mention before we hop on over there, something you can also do if you are wanting to get into kind of writing your own crochet tapestry, or if you need some words that aren't, you know, something you're gonna find, like say I wanted to do my name, I'm probably not gonna find a crochet tapestry pattern for my name. So if you're not comfortable using what I show you on the computer, because in the beginning, it was a little bit too complicated, I would just go online, print off graph paper, and color in the graph paper and then just use that as my guide. So you can always just use the old-fashioned way of using a piece of paper, coloring in the squares. Very simple, easy. I have done this quite a few times in my tapestry career, but now I just typically use the computer all the time because I am a little bit more comfortable with it. But that is just a little food for thought, something you can use if, again, you aren't comfortable jumping right into the computer, or if you're a visual person and you like to have it in front of you on a piece of paper. I get you. So doing a graph is a great idea. All right, with all that being said, let's hop into what I like to use when I am using the computer. We are going to be working on my laptop now. I'm just going to be here
teeny weeny small in the corner,
just to be able to look at what you're looking at the same time so I can explain it better. But first I wanted to say, do you love my wallpaper I have on my laptop? How cute is that? I just made it on Canva and I just thought you needed to see it. So anyways, there's that. But let's go on to my Firefox and we're gonna talk about a couple different places to find crochet tapestry patterns and different types of patterns, and then different ways to read crochet tapestry patterns. So that's kind of our next little segment here. The first place, and probably the most obvious place to look for crochet tapestry patterns, is just through Etsy. So I'm just on Etsy now. I typed in crochet tapestry pattern and a lot of things came up. When you are learning crochet tapestry, I would recommend doing crochet tapestry patterns that are 2 colors, maybe 3 colors, something like that just in the beginning, because it is a lot to learn yarn management, and this is just a great way to kind of get your feet wet, figure out how you color change best, get in the flow of things, figure out how to catch your floats, all that good stuff. So typically I would say to start off with a 2-color project. Now just because it's a 2-color project doesn't mean it needs to be boring. You're also gonna find, if you're doing it this way, a lot of artists you like more than others, people who have patterns that are kind of up your alley, just things like that. So like this 2-color project might be a little bit more challenging than I would recommend starting with, but you could start with this 2-color project, that would be fine. Or this one, you could probably do this little cute frog. He's kind of 2-colored. This one up here, if you're a SpongeBob fan, this one you could absolutely do 2-colored, and this would be quite easy, I think, for you as a beginner. So there are really fun beginner crochet tapestry projects that are 2 colors. Oh yeah, see, this olive branch would be a good one to start with. This 8 ball's great. I actually purchased this one before. This cute sea turtle is another good one. But yeah, lots of good options for beginners. Here's a good one. This would be cute. I will show you right now quickly. Crochet or Cry has this, which I'll probably do for Halloween. This would be a great beginner pattern too. It would be very easy to follow. There's not a lot of color changing quickly happening. You have a couple stitches to breathe in between color changing. So like this would be another great beginner project. In my eyes, my opinion, Crochet or Cry is someone I really enjoy their patterns. Here's a cute little one. So you can get some very inexpensive, cute tapestry projects to start and give a shot. But again, I would recommend sticking maybe to 2 or 3 colors. That's probably just enough. So Etsy is a great place to surf for any kind of crochet tapestry pattern project you could want. It's probably going to be on here, and I would definitely recommend. If you're looking to start with free patterns, you could absolutely try Pinterest, of course, another great website. Sometimes I have noticed the Pinterest patterns are written a little bit differently because you kind of have to be a little creative, and I'll show you what I mean by that. We'll look up crochet tapestry patterns, and things that are going to come up on here are going to be a little bit different. So a lot of times you're going to see them kind of written like this, where you'll just see the graph here, and then it'll say alpha pattern, whatever variation. And this is actually because it's a friendship bracelet pattern. But I have plenty of time used these to create crochet tapestry projects. They turn out the same way. You would just consider each square a single crochet, because all tapestry is written in all single crochet. So that's the only stitch you need to know to make these, which is cool. You can see, so you would know to do 3 single crochet in white, and then you would switch to pink and carry on that way. But this is a great place to come if you need a very specific graph. There's an alpha graph for almost everything you could think of. So if you need something specific, this would be a great place to come. If you're not comfortable writing your own crochet tapestry patterns, I would highly recommend. The only issue you're going to run into with these patterns is that when you purchase a crochet tapestry pattern, it will be numbered for you, which is really nice. And when you're going off one of these alpha graphs, because it's written for friendship bracelets, it's not written for a crocheter. So you do have to be a little bit more creative in the sense of, like, you would have to count out every single square to know how many single crochets long you need it, by how many single crochet rows high. So it's a little more work, and as a beginner that could be a little bit more challenging, but I just wanted to quickly touch on that you can find crochet tapestry graphs on Pinterest. They're just typically written as alpha graph, and you almost always have to read it this way. I wouldn't recommend that too much, but it is an option there for you if you want to try that out. The last place I'm going to show you graphs in is actually called Stitch Fiddle. A lot of crochet artists use Stitch Fiddle to create their patterns. So if you start making a lot of crochet tapestry, I think you'll become a little bit more familiar with Stitch Fiddle. This is a cool website too, because you are able to customize the colors. So let's say, for example, we're gonna be making a heart today. So say the heart is red in the pattern. If you wanted your heart to be in blue, you can edit the colors so that it's in blue on your graph. So you're reading the blue stitches where your blue stitches are going to be, instead of trying to translate, okay, every time there's a red stitch, I need to make a blue stitch. And that really helps when you get into projects that are maybe 3 colors or more. Again, a little bit more of an advanced technique, but just mentioning it quickly, Stitch Fiddle is something you'll probably become a little more familiar with. So we're going to obviously click on crochet, and we're going to go to crochet color work, because this is what we use for tapestries, etc., etc. Click on that one. You can click your yarn preference if you have one. I usually use Big Twist, but like Red Heart and stuff, see how there's way more colors you can pick from. It really doesn't matter which one of these you pick if you're making this on your own. And then you can see here you can do from a photo. So that could be something you found on Google or whatever. I have done this before and it doesn't really work that well, I'm going to be honest with you. So if you're going to start creating your own patterns, you're probably better off going from an empty chart, but you can try the picture idea if you want. I'm going to click empty chart, and the starting for this is typically 20 by 20, 20 columns wide by 20 rows high. So we'll just click create chart, and it's going to give us this little graph here with all of our little colors over here, and you can add more colors. There's all the kinds of options for colors as you're creating a graph. But this is a cool place to come if you need to maybe customize a name on something or whatever you need, just something quick. And it's very easy to just click your color, whatever color you want to use, come over here, hold and drag, and you can write out whatever you want. It's very easy to obviously erase, restart. Whoa. Unlike it would be if you were using just, graph paper and a pencil. It's a lot easier on here. So this is a good option for if you are looking to customize something. But again, writing your own crochet patterns is a little bit more advanced than I want to get into in this video. So I'm going to show you what we're going to be making today. This is our heart pattern for today. And you can see here, like when I was talking about the alpha graph, how there was no numbering system. Here we do have our numbers set out for us, which makes life just so much easier. And so this is what we're going to be making today. I just made this up really quick so we could practice color changing, tension, showing you how to catch your floats, all that good stuff. So before we start on this, I'm going to just go over different ways you can read a crochet tapestry pattern. So the first way you can read a pattern, and the way I actually learned on, was just using the graph. So this is very easy, simple way to learn. You would know you need to make 21 stitches. Your first row is going to be 22 because you need one to go back on, and I'll go into that more in just a moment. Like I said, this is just a very brief overview. And then you know that this project is going to be 20 rows high. So that makes it very easy. And when you're using Stitch Fiddle, what's cool about this, and I think why a lot of creators like to use Stitch Fiddle as well, is you can use this button here. This little guy, this location icon, is a progress tracker, which is really cool. So if you click this, it's going to, I was messing around with it, so that's why it's on row 6. But when you click on it for the first time, it'll start you at row 1. And it'll show you the highlighted row 1, makes it very easy, tunnel vision on the actual row you're working on. And you just need to make completely white stitches. Easy enough. As you move up and complete row 1, make sure you move your marker up on here. Move to row 2, you would complete another row of white. Row 3, you're going to add in some red, and it's just a really simple way to know each row how much of what color you need. And again, we're going to go over how to follow this graph once I have my project in front of you so we can do it together. But I just, again, wanted to just briefly touch on that. So that's the first way you can read a crochet graph, just by the simple graph itself. And again, how I started reading it, because it helped me to visually see the heart the whole time through. So it made sense why I was placing my stitches where. As I have done more crochet tapestry, I have gone into just reading the written instructions for patterns. I typically will have one page open with the final product. So if I'm getting a little confused or not understanding why a red stitch was there, I can go back and see, oh, that's because that's where my heart's starting. Now it makes more sense. I'm a very visual learner, so I need the visual there too. I just have it open in another tab. But it's easiest for me to read it this way through color blocking, which is how a lot of patterns will also give you the option to read it in. And when you purchase a crochet tapestry pattern, a lot of the time, you will receive something like this. And I know it looks maybe a little bit intimidating in the beginning, but it does just make reading a graph a lot easier because you don't have to be counting each individual square. It just tells you here on row 3, you're going to be working on the right side of your project, which is also very helpful to know in case you accidentally end up missing a row or forgetting that you're on row 4 and you're like, wait, was I on the wrong side or right side? I'm unsure. This just takes a lot of guesswork out of it. So I like to read the color blocking for that reason alone, really. And here you see you're going to do 10 white stitches, and then you're going to do 1 red stitch and then 10 white again. This is really helpful too, because if you do 10 white stitches and then you do 1 red stitch and then you do, let's say you only get 9 white stitches in again, you're going to know you messed up somewhere. So you need to go back and count your stitches and make sure you have 21 stitches in your row. So color blocking is a really great and easy way to read the pattern. Like I said, it's got right side, wrong side, which we'll go into more once we're actually doing the work. But this is a great way to read it and how I recommend reading them, especially once you've been working on tapestry for a little bit. But you will find your own way, of course. Everybody does. You'll have your own personal preference, and it's probably going to take you a couple projects to really find out the way that you like to read it best. Last way to read a crochet tapestry pattern is through written instruction. This is not a method I prefer. I never read patterns this way. In fact, if a pattern came this way, I probably wouldn't even make it. I would just use the graph only, the old-fashioned way. But this way of reading a graph just shows you, literally as it says, written instructions. So it'll show you white for 10 stitches, rogue for 1 stitch, and then 10 for white again. And that is just way too complicated. For me, it's too much words and I don't like it. So I never read patterns this way. But again, maybe you would like it this way. It's worth a shot for sure. And it's definitely worth mentioning because I'm sure there's plenty of people that enjoy reading them this way. Personally, I just like the colors. Another reason I like the colors is because if you're doing a project where you have maybe 4 or 5 colors, let's say, just seeing the colors highlighted and seeing the color with the number in it just makes it really easy for me personally. Like I'll show you here really quick. This is a pattern I'm writing right now. And so in this section right here, I have quite a few different colors and it just makes it really easy to see where the blues are going, where the oranges are going, all that. And that's this is a lot faster way to read it than in graph form, but that's a whole nother thing. All right, so with all of that being said, I think that we are going to be ready to just getting into actually reading the pattern. We're going to go over turning your work and working the wrong side of the project, working the right side of the project. We're going to add in new colors. We're going to do color changing, catching our floats, all that stuff. So let's switch over to that and we'll get right into making this heart. We're going to get right into the pattern now. So our first row, and I will pop both versions on the screen if you want to be looking at the graph or if you want to look at the color blocking. Our first row is going to be 21, it says, but row 1 is not actually row 1. And just for reference, right now I'm using big twist value, like I said, and I actually just have a 5mm hook because I do want you guys to be able to hopefully see my work a little bit bigger. So if it's a little larger, I feel like that might help. So row 1 is actually going to be considered the first row of the tapestry project, but we have to be able to make row 1 first. So our first initial step is chaining out the amount of stitches we need for row 1. So if row 1 says we need 21 stitches, we actually need 22 stitches. And that's because we need enough to turn our work and go back on our 1 stitch. Okay, so we have 22 stitches here. Nice. And we need to be crocheting in that second stitch from the hook. It's going to be our first stitch of row 1. So let's insert our hook into there, and that's going to be stitch 1. And now we are officially working row 1 of our tapestry. So row 1, like I said, is just a row of 21 single crochet. Every crochet tapestry pattern, at least that I've come across, maybe there's some out there that's not, but every crochet tapestry pattern I have ever come across and written for myself is always written in single crochet. So that's pretty easy. You don't need to know a whole lot of fancy stitches to complete this, but just so you know, it's always single crochet, I guess unless stated otherwise. So go ahead and just work your first 21 stitches across, and that brings us to the end of round 1. This is going to be considered the right side of our project. So you can see if you're looking at the color blocking chart, the RS stands for right side, WS is going to stand for wrong side. And if you're looking at the graph, you won't know that. So that's the only kind of confusing thing about working the graph. You'll just know that you did 21 stitches. So now when you are reading a crochet tapestry pattern, we need to do the wrong side now to go back. You never I shouldn't say never, but you typically do not cut off and start over here again. I've never seen a pattern that has needed to do that, but all you need to do is chain 1 and then you just turn your work the other way. So now the bumps are all facing you and you can tell this is the wrong side of your project. And if you're looking at the color blocking chart, you can see it says round 2, wrong side, 21 stitches across. If you are reading the graph, you are going to have to just chain 1, flip your work yourself. You're going to be reading the graph like a snake. So your next row of the graph is going to start on the left side and you're going to be working left to right. And so that can kind of help you know that you should be on the wrong side. Working left to right is wrong side, and when you work right to left, that's your right side. But for my color blocking people, you can see we have these arrows. So arrow 1, you can see for row 1, that arrow was pointing across this way. So you could see our work needed to be heading in this direction. So a row 2, our work needs to be heading in this direction back to the right side. And so it's kind of reading it as if it was still facing the front of you. Sometimes those arrows can maybe get a little confusing because of course when you do turn your work, you're going to be working back from your right to your left, but just know that it's saying it as if you were looking at it from the back. So this would be your wrong side to work back to the front side. And what you need to do on this side, again, is just, it's going to be 21 single crochet. So nothing fancy, nothing crazy yet. I'm going to do these 21 stitches really quick and then we will read our next row and we will start adding in some color for row 3, which is very exciting. All right, so we've made it to the end of row 2 and we are just going to chain up 1, turn our work. We are back on the right side of our project here. You can also, if you get confused on what your right side and wrong side is, typically when the tail is on the left side of your project, you know that your project is right side facing you. If your tail is on the right side here, you are on the wrong side of the project. So that can kind of help you too in the beginning if you're getting confused on what side's your right side, what side is your wrong side. That can help you out just a little bit there. So this row we're going to be adding in our red color. So we did chain 1 and turn our work, and my graph people, you're now going to be reading your graph coming this way across. And my color blocking people, you can see now that we have 3 color blocks, I'm going to explain to you how to read this graph. So you're always going to be reading your color blocking graph from left to right. You never read it from right to left. So this can get kind of confusing because if you're someone who's used to doing it the graph way and you switch to the color blocking, I think just naturally your eyes want to then, like if you're looking at row 3 and 4, your eyes just naturally want to snake down that way, but you're always going to be reading from left to right. So once row 3 is done and you have completed 10 white stitches, 1 red stitch, and 10 white stitches, your next row, row 4, for the wrong side, you're going to be starting back on the left side and reading across to the right side again. Same with row 5, start with the 8, and with the 7. So of course when it's perfectly symmetrical, it doesn't matter. Like row 3 and 4, it wouldn't matter if you messed it up, but it will matter the further we go. So just get in the habit of always ending the row like the end of a sentence and just starting a completely new sentence or new row on the left side of your work. So we're going to add in our red on this row. For row 3, let's go ahead and do our 10 white single crochet stitches. 9, and so now we have 9 and we need our 10th stitch in this next stitch here. But what we're going to do for color changing is we're going to insert into our next stitch as normal. We're going to grab our white yarn, pull it up through so we have, as we would be completing a regular single crochet, and then we are going to go grab our red yarn, make a slip knot with it, attach it onto our hook like that, and complete our stitch in red. So you can see here now our stitch is still white, but now our next stitch will be in red, which is exactly what we want. And we just need it all for one stitch. So go ahead, insert into the next stitch. Grab your red yarn, keep your white yarn tucked here in front, like that, just to keep it maintained. Pull up your red like that, and then we're going to be switching to our white. We're gonna switch back to our white. So go ahead and grab your white, place it over, and complete your stitch. So now you should have one red stitch and you're back to white on the hook, which is perfect. And just because we did only one stitch here, I like to kind of secure it. So keep that red yarn close to your next stitch. Insert your hook. Your white yarn is crossing over the red. It's just gonna keep it nice and secure. And yarn over, complete the stitch. There you go. And if you look behind, it's gonna look like that. Now we can drop our red work like that, and we can continue on our row just in our white. If you are carrying this red all the way through, especially because we're using white, you're going to be able to see your color through your work. So just drop it, let it stay back there, and complete your stitches with the white as normal, all by themselves. All right, that's the end of round 3. We did 10, so we can go ahead and chain up 1, and we're gonna turn our work. We're back on the wrong side of the work, and we are going to work our way back. This time, we're doing 9 and 3. So, I have 8 stitches here so far, and I'm going to get ready to color change for my 9th stitch. So I'm gonna insert into my next stitch as normal, and pull our white loop up like that. And we need to switch our color back now. We are on the wrong side of the work, so it can be a little more messy on this side. We're not gonna see this side at the end, so don't worry too much. But you can see our yarn is technically twisted once here. So what we can do, if you can see here how it's crossing over, we can actually take our red, we have our white yarn here where it would be used to make our single crochet, but since we are color changing, we're going to drop our white yarn and take our red yarn here, hold the white yarn with your thumb, it's just easy to keep it out of the way, and go ahead, put it onto your hook and pull through. That's going to complete our white stitch on this side, but also get our next stitch ready for red, which is perfect. And then we are going to be inserting in this white stitch next, because we do have to do 3 red for this. So we're going to insert into this stitch, pull up a loop of red, and just complete normal single crochet like that. Perfect. It's okay that this white is over here now, because we're going to push him over in front of our work, in front of this red stitch here, and just work him as part of the stitch. So you're going to go under the white and into your stitch, pull up a loop, and pull through regular single crochet. So now your white is coming along for the ride here, which is good because we need to switch him again next. So we're going to enter into our next stitch. Okay, keeping it like this. Pull up a loop, and we're gonna switch back our colors. Now, when we're working on the wrong side, you can easily just take this white and put it over, pull through. That's great. It's gonna look like this on this side though. And that little white area here kind of bugs me. I don't love that. So what I like to do when I am switching back my colors specifically on the wrong side of my work is I will actually twist my yarn on purpose. So I will take, let me move this. I'm gonna take the white here, which is on top right now. I'm gonna put it under and pull it back over. So see how we twisted it there? And that just makes our stitches nice and crisp. It really helps to keep our color changing just very crisp, because there's no We have no red sticking out the side here and no white bleeding into it here, which I also love. All right, so now we're gonna drop our red again and we're gonna head back this way. It also helps really secure that last red stitch so you don't get a loose stitch here. Just doing that honestly helps in so many ways besides just making it look crisp. It also does help really lock that last stitch in, because when you're color changing it can get funky sometimes if you're not remembering to pull your yarn. So that just does really help me a lot, and I just really like the way it helps my stitches look. That's the end of round 4. Round 5, we're going to chain 1 first, flip our work. We're back on the right side of our project. It's a lot easier now to tell which side is the wrong side. Our messy side over here is the wrong side where our tails are. So this row we need 6 red stitches. I'm going to show you this time how we're going to float our white so we're not working it all the way through. We don't want to always be working it all the way through every stitch, because it's going to make this center area where we're color changing a lot thicker than where our just plain white single crochets are. So we want to keep that as thin as possible, even though we're using multiple colors. So let me explain that better here. We just need to go ahead and make 8 white single crochets. Try to keep these single crochets a little bit looser maybe than you would. This will just help not get a bubble effect, because you do have to remember we're using a lot more yarn in this center. So by nature, this center area is going to be thicker, and it's just helpful if you have some room to give when you're blocking in your background area here. So keep these stitches maybe a little bit looser than you would. Don't be too tight. All right, so we have 7 single crochets here. We need to change so we're ready for our color change for this stitch. So we're gonna insert like normal. Sorry, I got the tripod right in front of my face here. Pull up our red loop and pull it through. Now, when you are adding the yarn a couple stitches over from where you used it last, give yourself a little bit of slack. Don't be pulling this very tight. When you're pulling your extra yarn tight, this is when you can cause puckering in your work and just cause your work not to lay flat, and you want it to lay nice and flat in the end. So give yourself plenty of room here. You can see we have a little bit of just chilling back here, the red yarn. It's not pulled super tight like that because we're gonna have some problems. So we've got some room there. The white though you can have nice and tight, and we're going to work our first red single crochet of the row. And like I said, we need 6. So we have 1 there, and we worked over our white there, which is fine. But now take your white, hold it in your right hand there, and just complete 2 single crochets in red as you would normally, as if the white is not even there. And now we're going to add our white back in because we're going to need it over here at some point. So we don't want to have to be dragging it from way over here and have this really long float. It can get a little bit messier than you would like it to be. We're going to float our white yarn here. So we're going to insert into our next stitch as normal. We've got the white tucked back there. So it is on top. You can see it's on top of our hook here, which is perfect. And then we're just going to wrap our red and pull it through normal. There we go. 4, and you can see back here, we have it here. Also, don't pull this too tight, because if you pull this too tight, we're also gonna cause, see that, some rippling in our project. Cut your yarn some slack here. Let it hang out the way it wants to be. Don't be pulling it too tight. We can hold it in our right hand again, and we're going to complete our next stitch. Stitch 5, and now for stitch 6, we're going to take our white back. We're working into the white, so it's a little bit harder to see, but you can see it is there on top of the hook. And pull up our red loop as normal. You're working on the front side. You can just very easily pop it over, pull through like this. So we're going to keep going here, complete the rest of the round. We're gonna move our red out of the way there. We don't need him there. And we'll begin round 6, chain 1, turn. For round 6, we need 8 red stitches, and we only need 6 white in the beginning and then 7 at the end. So if you're looking at your color blocking, you can see, again, we're starting left to right. So let's do 6 stitches and 6. We're getting ready for our red. So we're just taking it and putting it over, pulling our white yarn so we kind of tighten our loop there so we don't have a super loose loop. And there we go. So our next stitch here is white, and we are going to place our first red single crochet in there. There we go. And this white yarn can hang out over here for now, it's okay. Let's do one more red, and then we'll link our white back up. For the wrong side, it's always going to be worked in front, so go ahead and put your hook under it and through the stitch at the same time. Grab your yarn, pull it up, there. Remember not to pull this too tight, it's okay like that. Push it to the side, and we'll do 2 more, and then we'll grab it again. I try to catch my floats approximately every 2 to 3 stitches, just because it really helps keep your work nice and tidy. It doesn't always work out that way for me. Sometimes I forget about it and it's way over there and I'm like, oh crap. But I do my best to try to do every 2 stitches. It just keeps it the neatest. And now, since we're on the wrong side, I'm going to do my twisting method where I twist the white yarn. And so actually the red yarn will be on top, but you're just going to hold it with your right finger, yarn over and pull through. And there we go. We have secured our red stitch. So he can hang out over there, and we just need to do 7 of these. Chain 1 and turn always. We're back on the right side of our work. Okay, I'm gonna work this last round with you, round 7 on the right side, and then I will meet you back up at round 14 because that's when we're gonna do a little bit more color changing, and that way I can show you how I try to keep my yarn as untangled as possible. I will tell you guys that it is not always a possibility. You cannot always keep your yarn as untangled as you'd like to. Sometimes you just have to physically take your skeins and move them around and untangle them that way. And sometimes I do that, especially when my 5 colored projects. I'll just untangle it by moving the skeins around and untangling it from the back out. But it is possible most of the time with 2 and even 3 color projects to just be untangling your work as you go. So we will go into that a little more. Again, make sure you're giving your floats plenty of room here so that they're not too tight, and when the project stretches, it still has plenty of give, because when you block it, it is going to stretch out a little bit and you want it to be able to have some stretch to it. So we need 10 red for this one, and we have prepared for our red in that stitch there. So let's go do this. 1. Physically in the beginning, hold the white with your right hand while you're working your 2 stitches there, and then you can grab the white, place it next to your stitch so when your hook goes through, you just catch it automatically. The red will always wrap over it like that to secure it in, and you're good to go. And after you do that, hold it back in your right hand. Let's work 2 more. And we'll pull it back over like that. Got our red coming over it again to lock it in. There we go. Holding it back over here like that. 2 more. And now we're going to color change. So insert red as usual. Take our white over our hook. Colors change there. The other reason you kind of have to pull your stitches in is because if you keep it too loose, you're going to get these holes in your project here where the color changes are. You'll get some really large holes. I should have left one a little more open so you could see. So do try to make sure you're pulling that last stitch tight enough. You're not getting a lot of loose tension, and then that way you won't have any issues with gapping. Okay, so that is the end of round 7. I'm going to now complete all the way up to round 14 without you, and I will be back on row 14, and we'll go over a little more intense color changing that way. But just keep working this as normal, and we'll be back at 14. Okay guys, I just wanted to show you something really quickly as I'm working round 13. So we're just about to split in the middle to create the heart, the top of the hearts. But I wanted to show you why it is important to be catching the floats instead of just dragging them across the whole thing. So you can see here, I caught one and then I was like, oh, I better show you guys. So I'm going to work the whole rest of this without catching anything here, and I will show you how this can lead to maybe some of you having the issue with your work not sitting flat. This could be why. So let's say we're just going to catch this last one where we need a color change. If you're pulling this yarn from way over here, chances are you're going to end up just pulling it entirely too tight, just because you want that next stitch to, you know, work out as planned. So you're probably really gonna pull it too tight, and then, okay, that looks great there, you did that, but now you have this issue and the back looks like this because you pulled it so tight, and it's never gonna sit flat this way. So that is why catching your floats is really important, because it just helps your project have some stretching room, be able to stretch and grow with blocking, and it will just keep it to lay just naturally much more flat. Like it's already laying pretty flat and nicely as is. I also wanted to mention one other thing. You can tell this side of your project, especially, we did some pretty extreme angling quickly here. So this side looks pretty nice. And then this side will kind of look a little jagged and funky. That's just because we increased our rows so quickly, and this side just by nature will never be as crisp and clean as this side. I've tried so many times to fix that and see if I could see on other patterns anyone who's figured out a way to make it more crisp, and I think it's just the nature of a single crochet is going to do that. So don't get all fussy about this. Again, this is just for our technique practice. And when you're not increasing so quickly, it won't be this drastic of a line here. But like I said, this side will always look a little bit nicer. It just is the way it is. Okay, let's go back to this. I'm gonna keep working round 13 here and catching my floats back here and then pulling it away. The other reason you don't want to be working your yarn 100% of the time with your stitches, although it's so much easier to just hold it the whole way through, I know that, but especially when you're working it on the wrong side of your project, I'm talking too much. When you're working on the wrong side of your project, inevitably you will be able to see the stitches through, and it just won't look as nice and as clean. You want it to really look like it's all red and then all white here. You don't really want to see any bleeding through. So that is why you want to just catch it every third stitch or so. Another thing you can do if you are having issues with gapping here, even if you're twisting your yarn, something you can do to make your life a little bit easier too is just this red yarn, after you color change, you can put it behind your first stitch as we would do when we were catching our floats, and you're not going to be able to see that one stitch through, and then you can hold him to the side, and that can help even better secure him if you're having issues with gapping in the color changing spots and stuff like that. So that's something you can try out as well if you'd like. We are chaining one, turning our work. We're working the wrong side now, but we're going to work the beginning of our top of the hearts. So for this row, we need 3 white. And the third one we're color changing. Again, you can see we're a little bit twisted up here, but that's actually going to be fine. We can work ourselves out in the next round. I typically use the right side of my project to work out my tangles, and the wrong side is typically where I get more tangled. So it's okay if it gets a little tangly on the wrong side. We can kind of sort it out a little bit on the right side, and if not, again, you can just manually move the skeins if need be. So now we need 7 in red. 1, 2 in our left hand. Just take it with our thumb, place it there, insert. There we go. 6 and color changing for 7. So it's okay if we just caught our float and it's up at the top here again, that's fine. We'll just insert and pull our red loop like that. We just want to make sure it's under there so we can alternate our colors. And instead of just popping the white right on, you can twist it if you want it to be a little bit more crisp, like I said before. And then put the white on there. Pull all your stitches down there. Make sure your floats are still good. And we're just going to be switching for 1 stitch now. So I will work it just right on top of the red for this 1 stitch. And I'll just insert into the next stitch, pull up the loop, and twist again. Put my red back on. So we will start to get a little tangled here because we're changing colors so much. And there we go. Hold it across, and we need 7 red again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and twist. There we go. And we'll work our first one just over it, just to extra secure it into place, and put it behind us there. 1, 2. Turn our work, and we're on row 15, the right side. You can see now we have our little divot where our heart is starting. How cute. And you can see too, look, this is good. You can see all of our tangles, which is perfect because this round we are going to try to unwork those as much as possible. Let me scoot them up so we can see them a little more. There we go. That's what we need to untangle this round. And like I said, the right side is the easier side to do this on, just because you can kind of worry about the back a little bit less. Now, for row 15, we are doing 3 white again. 1, 2, 3. Got our red back there so we can get our color change like that. And now, instead of just turning this again and further twisting, we're actually going to untwist one. So it's twisted like that, and we're just going to take our white over and pull the red over. So we are twisting it in reverse, which might be a little bit confusing at first, but as long as that white ends up on top, we can take the red, pop it over. So you can see in the back here, it's twisted up like that. That's actually, there you go, you can see it's twisted like that. That's actually going to help us untwist it without having to manually move the skeins. So now we just need 6 stitches here. So 1, hold our red over here, excuse me, our white in our right hand. 1, 2, 3, reconnect our float here. 4, pull it to the side. 5, 6, color change, and same thing. See, we still have some tangling, so we're just going to take our white from here, put it on top of the red like that. So it's pulling the white up over the red. Place it onto your hook, pull through, pull this, see how that happened there? See how loose it was, and then we pulled the red and it was a little bit tighter. Make sure your white is nice and tight, but not too tight where you're pulling your floats in. And we need to work, let's see here, three white for this. So we can work right over is fine for this little part here. Because it's just a couple of stitches, sometimes I don't worry about moving and scooting and all that. I'll just kind of work right over it like that. And then let's reassess how tangled we are again. We just have one little twist left, which is perfect because we need to go back to red. So we will take our white and hold it in our right hand again. We have our red coming from under like that and attach it back to our hook. Pull through. But you can see now a little bit where you can see the red through there, and that is why you don't want to carry it all the way through the project. You wouldn't want to see that everywhere, but for this little area, it's okay. Pulling our white down so the stitch is nice and secure. Let's place our first single crochet over the white to lock it in, like that. And then we can take the white, hold it in our right hand. Let's do 2 stitches. 1, 2. This one will pop the white back. Remember, always through the stitch and make sure the white is over for the right side. Pulling your loop up. There we go. Holding it back. The more you do this, you'll just be able to drop it by itself. So it will become a lot easier. You won't have to manually do that, but in the beginning, I think it is good to do it that way. And you can see now from our untwisting, we completely untwisted the yarn, and we just have it coming from both skeins now perfectly straight, which is amazing. That trick does take a little bit of practice as well, but you will just kind of learn how to untwist yourself as you go. I just wanted to show you that because it will save you a lot of time in the long run if you can work the right side of your project and try to untwist yourself as you go. That is now row, what are we on? Row 15. So now we're gonna work row 16, which is gonna be our last row of our heart. We are just about done with this project. And again, inevitably on the wrong side, you're just gonna end up getting a little bit tangled, but that's all right. And we'll work 1, 2, 3. We need 4 white for this one, so I'm just gonna work my red in front of my stitch and then into the stitch. Oop, there we go. Grab our white, pull it and twist it up and over, pulling our white secured. And we'll do 1 over our white just to really lock it in. There we go. 1, scoot them over. And we'll do 2, 3, coming back. On the wrong side, this is how it looks. The yarn will always be in front of the stitch. Pulling it up, we will do our little twisting action. There we go. And 1 over to lock in our white there, or excuse me, lock in the red stitch we had. And now we need to do 5. We got 1, 2. Since we're going all the way over on 5, I am actually not going to carry it the whole way. I'm just going to pop it in where it needs to be. All right, and we'll twist again. Okay. Pull in the white and we'll lock it in. Hold our white over here. 2, 3, last stitch of red, 4, twist, there we go, and we need 4 here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's actually the end of our chain 1 and turn always. That is the end of our red. So it doesn't actually matter that we got this tangled up again, but you can see how we retangled. We would just untangle it the same way we just did in the last round if we needed to continue with the red. But since it doesn't matter, you can actually just go ahead and cut your red. Leave yourself a nice little tail for weaving in, and we could work over it a little bit too. So we'll just pull it off there so we don't have a tangle anymore, no problem. And we are going to now work row 17, which is our next row, and it's just all completely white. So we'll work it as normal. And once I get to my first red stitch here, I'll take that red yarn, place it behind there so that we can kind of just minimize also the amount of ends we need to weave in. I'll probably just do 1, 2, 3 over that one, and then I'll drop the red here, hold it with my right hand as we have been, and I'll just continue on with just the white. And that is, like I said, just to help kind of minimize how much of the ends you need to be weaving in. But that is really our heart completed. We just have a couple more rows of the white, which we don't need to go over together because it's, like I said, it's just regular single crochet. So that's row 17. I'm actually just going to do one more row, row 18 of all white. I know this goes up to row 20, but I didn't check it before I like I said, this pattern was just like a really quick little rough draft I made just to show you guys this. But I'm just going to go one more row so we have an equal amount of row of whites on both sides, and then we will actually do some attaching the dowels. One more thing I really wanted to go over quickly with you guys. Someone asked me when I use yarn bobbins and when I know when to use those and when not to. So with this project I showed you today, there's really no need for a yarn bobbin because we're never going that many stitches across. But let's say we had a project where, let's use the moth I made, for example. I'll insert a picture of the moth, but you can see we used yellow way over here, and then we didn't need it for probably another, this had to be 45 stitches or so. So instead of trying to float that yellow all the way to the other side, I just created a yarn bobbin of yellow, and I placed one on one side and one on the other. And so once I was done working the yellow on the first side, I would drop it. Instead of carrying it all the way through, I wouldn't have to pick up yellow again to the other side. So that is really for once you get a little more into advanced projects. A lot of beginner projects, and especially when you're using two colors, you don't ever have to go that far in between without changing your yarn color. So you don't need to worry about a yarn bobbin too much. And as far as how much do I know how to wind the bobbin, I don't. So all I do is I'll just take my red, like in this instance if we were doing it with the red, and I'll just wrap it and wrap it and wrap it, and I'll make it into a little ball, cut off, and I'll attach it on this side, and I'll just have this little hanging ball of approximately however much I thought I needed. If I need to attach more later, I do, but there's really no true way of knowing that. It's a guesstimation there. So that's something, like I said, for a little bit more advanced crochet. I know you can actually buy yarn bobbins to wind up your yarn on, but I just will wind it into a little ball and do it that way. So as you can see, once you're completed with your project, if you held your tension pretty well and you weren't pulling your floats too tight, you can see here on the back there, and just by nature it will lay pretty flat. You don't have to worry too much, and sometimes the bigger the project, obviously it starts to get wonky and wavy, but for these little ones it will lay nice. What you can do to block your project is, if it's a smaller project, you can just get it wet with a spray bottle and just put it on a blocking board and stretch it out that way if you choose to do so. With my larger projects, I will spray them down with water, kind of, you know, stretch them like this, and then put some weighted books or something on top of them. I'll let it sit overnight, and if that doesn't do it, I can use an iron just on a low setting, and I'll just run my iron over it. I never will run it over the back side because I never want it to snag on a float and catch and pull, and I don't know. Sometimes the back is a huge mess when you have, you know, a lot of color work going on. But yeah, you can iron the top a little bit. I have done that. I've never had a burning issue or anything. Just be cautious, use a low setting heat, or like I said, just use a spray bottle and water, stretch it out, and put some heavy weighted books or something on either side. I just wanted to go over those two other things really quick. I had a few questions about that. So once our project is complete, and I did cut off my ends there, I left this one just for now because we're going to crochet over it. But a lot of times if you want to turn it into a wall hang, you need to add a border. A border is very simple, and I'll just show you just a regular single crochet border. You can as well do a scalloped border, whatever kind of border you want. There's all kinds of options, but I'll just show you a regular single crocheted border. So when I am making my crochet border, I'll always start here in this upper left hand corner and work my single crochet, in this instance, border around like this. So then when I get to here, I can seamlessly add my dowel to it. It's the least amount of weaving and ends possible, and that's what I like. So I'm just gonna attach up in this corner here, grab my red. I want my border to be red for this. Slip knot and get my loop started. I'll do chain one just to attach here. So we'll start here in that larger hole, and then we'll chain one, and you will skip this little hole next, and you'll go into your larger gap again here, your next larger gap, and place a single crochet into there, chain one, skip that one, go into this one. And this, like I said, will just help make it look a little more evenly spaced. The reason chain one, skip one is good is because when you're working every stitch, you can see sometimes it doesn't really line up quite as nicely. The sides are the trickier part for sure. When you get to the corner here, you'll do your last stitch and you'll chain two to wrap around, and then you can just insert right into here, your first one. The bottom's easy to work because you can like very, you know, much more clearly see where your every other skip stitch would be. Back at our corner, chain two in the corners always, a little bit better. These larger ones here are what we're going into, and we're skipping these smaller ones on this side here. The borders are always totally optional. I do feel like they add a nice finish to the piece. If you have really tight tension, you might want to size up for this border round just so you don't end up having your work curl up just from doing this part if you're working your stitches really tight. So if you need to, size up a little bit, but otherwise if you can keep your tension a little bit looser. I also have very tight tension, so I understand if you need to, but if you can keep your tension a little bit looser, it does work up just fine. So you can see, especially when chaining two in the corner, it'll keep it, you know, from curling up. Let's add in our dowel. That is our final step to this project. And then you have a completed wall hang. You can see here, I grabbed these to show you. I have this pack of wooden dowels. I got these at, I believe, either Joann or Michael's. These ones I think are from Joann specifically. These are a 5/16 by 12 inch dowel, and these happen to be a really good size for quite a lot of my projects. Now my much larger, bigger projects, I had to go get much longer, larger dowels, but that happens to be a good size. There's all kinds of options you can get at either Joann or Michael's, just depending on your project, and it's really personal preference on how thick you want your dowel to be, but you'll just have to kind of play around with that and see what you like. So let's show you how to attach these really quick. Another fun way you can customize these dowels, and what I like to do, is I paint them according to my project color. For the sake of this project, I'm just gonna keep it in its natural unfinished color, but a lot of times I paint the dowels black. I've painted a couple of them pink, white, whatever. It just really helps tie my project together really nicely. Like for this one, I'd probably paint it white since I'm doing a red border, or I would paint it red to match, whichever you prefer. Something I like to do, because once you're working it over halfway through your project, you can't really move it around too much. So you want to make sure you have it as centered as possible in the beginning. And sometimes I like to place like a stitch marker or a chip clip you could put right here just to hold this in place so your dowel doesn't do a lot of sliding when you're fastening it on. So if you want it to be centered, just eyeball it and find it to be as centered as possible. And then you can clip side that we're not working on if need be, completely up to you. I have a clip here myself and I'll just place it on here. This is not the proper dowel size for this project. This is just the one I happen to have. You can cut these down too. Have you seen some of my studio vlogs? Sometimes I cut these down. I don't know the right way to do it. Like I said, just for sake of this project, I'm just gonna keep it as is. This is just really to show you how to attach it on. What we're gonna do is we just finished the other side of our border here and we are now at that top stitch and we have chained one here. So now that we've chained one, we're just gonna put the dowel in front of our work. We'll bring our hook around to the front here like that. And we're just, see, this is why I have it clipped because it's gonna slide around a lot for sure. And we're just going to insert into that first stitch. I know we already have a stitch there, but I'm just gonna still insert over the dowel first though, into the stitch. And this is just our spare tail from when we were working. Don't worry about that there. We're just gonna grab our red as we would a regular single crochet and we're just gonna pull it all the way up, nice and high, yarn over and complete your single crochet. And there is our first attachment to the dowel. Now, this one we're not going to chain one, skip one, we're gonna go into every single stitch. So our next stitch we're gonna head into regular single crochet, grab our yarn back there, pull it up nice and high, and pull our yarn through like that. So you can see it's really getting attached now. And like I said, we're going through every stitch. Repeat this process all the way across. It can be a little bit tricky in the beginning, but just remember to always keep your yarn working over your dowel. Otherwise it won't be attached. So if you have it like, you know, if you accidentally put it to the back here and you go through here, you're obviously not going to be picking up the dowel. So make sure your dowel is in front and you're picking it up every single time you go to grab your single crocheted stitch. Bring it up nice and high. And it just works a really nice, even top to your project. The perfect finishing touch in my opinion. So I'm going to remove my clip now. And I'm going to keep going. Just have a couple left, but see how, like this one might be able to scooch it a little bit, but it gets very stuck. It can be really tricky to move it after you've kind of set it into place, especially if you're painting them. Something about once they're painted, the yarn will not slide on those. So even though we've already have a stitch worked into here, we're gonna work our last stitch into the end here like that. And there we go. And now I'm gonna leave the hook in my project still, just to kind of hold our place. Zoom out here for you. Look how cute it is. Oh my gosh. And then we're gonna take from our skein here, we're gonna pull up a little bit of yarn and kind of roughly estimate how much we need for our hangings. It just depends on how much room you want between where you hung it and your actual project. So I think for me about there is good. Just gonna cut this here, and then how we kept our crochet hook attached there, pull it all the way through. That will fasten our last stitch there. All right, and then I'm just gonna get my darning needle and put our red yarn onto there. And I'll just come up at this top V and kind of insert it into here like that. And then I'll just weave this in kind of as much or as little as I want. I just do it a couple times woven in. I'll turn it over. I'll probably just tie these two together here. Basic little knot. Then down here where we worked this in, we can chop that one off. We worked over this one a little bit, cut that one off. So very minimal end weaving. I'm not gonna weave those in. Don't come for me. And there you have it. Your wall hang is complete. I think this is just a really cute little sample project. Again, this is just a great way to learn the basics of crochet tapestry so you can expand and grow and get a larger range of what you can crochet tapestry wise. Well guys, that is everything I have for you today. I hope I was able to answer a lot of your guys' questions. Any kind of concern you had or hesitation you had to starting crochet tapestry, I hope this was very helpful for you. And if you made the heart along with me, I hope you enjoyed it. I think it came out really cute for just a little test project. Just a good way, like I said, to work on color changing, carrying your yarn, stitch definition, all that stuff. So I think it came out really cute, and congratulations if that was your first crochet tapestry project. You did it. Eventually, you'll be making 5-color projects in no time. Definitely drop down in the comments, guys, if there's any questions I didn't get to that you still have. I'm so sorry if I missed any. I did my best to get to all of them, but of course, if I missed some, please let me know in the comments. I will be down there chatting with you guys, answering all other questions or clarifying things you may need clarified. I love chatting with you guys there, and I do my best to get back to absolutely everybody. So if you have a question, I will do my best to answer it. If a lot of you really enjoy crochet tapestry or pick it up quickly, I would be very open to doing another more intermediate style crochet tapestry tutorial where we can go into further detail on color changing and maybe really get into yarn bobbins, working up bigger projects, all those things. So if that is something you guys will be interested in, also let me know in the comments. I would love to hear what you're working on. If you've made any crochet tapestry recently, or if you have plans to make something, I'd love to hear about it. So I hope this was a great introduction for you guys on crochet tapestry. If you're new here and you feel like sticking around, don't forget to click the subscribe button. I do post new videos every Monday and occasionally on Thursdays. I just did a giveaway on my channel. We had a really fun time with that. But yeah, if you don't want to miss out on our next giveaway, definitely subscribe. Keep your eyes peeled. I will have more giveaways coming. I'll be back on Thursday to hang out with you guys if you're interested in just having a more chatty, relaxed video. Other than that, like this video, guys. If you liked it or found it helpful, it helps me out a lot and lets me know what you guys are interested in. Share this with your other crochet friends who might want to learn crochet tapestry. And as always, guys, thank you so much for clicking on this video. Thank you for letting me take up a little bit of your time here today on the internet. I will be seeing you guys in my next one. Thank you again. I love you all. Bye.